Good morning, Alex and friends. I'm Grace. Today is Wednesday, August 6th, 2025, and you're listening to Alex's News. The weather in Riverside today will reach a high of 97.1 degrees Fahrenheit, with a low of 69.5 degrees. It's going to be a warm one, so remember to stay hydrated, seek shade, and take breaks if you're spending time outdoors. Coming up, we'll be exploring the discussion around whether economic threats from Donald Trump could potentially bring about a resolution or a significant change in the war in Ukraine. Plus, we'll unpack why California's biggest ongoing story is not just one thing, but rather a complex web of interconnected issues. All this and more coming up on Alex's News. Stay tuned. We begin this morning with a high-stakes diplomatic mission unfolding in Moscow. United States President Donald Trump's special envoy, Steve Witkoff, arrived in Russia today for crucial discussions about the ongoing Ukraine war.
That's right, Grace. This visit, as reported by NPR, IdeaStream, WEAU, and CBS News, is truly a pivotal moment, happening just 2 days before a major deadline President Trump has set for Russia.
Ethan, for those unfamiliar, who exactly is Steve Witkoff, and what makes him President Trump's choice for such a critical diplomatic role?
Well, Grace, Witkoff is primarily known as a prominent real estate billionaire, which might seem an unconventional background for a diplomat. However, President Trump has lauded him as a, quote, great negotiator, end quote. According to CBS News and WBAL, he assumed the role of President Trump's special envoy to the Middle East in January of this year, coinciding with the start of Trump's second term. But he's also functioned as a de facto envoy to Russian President Vladimir Putin since March 2025, serving as the primary communication channel between the Trump administration and the Kremlin, as reported by the Moscow Times and The Guardian.
So, this isn't his first foray into Russian diplomacy?
Far from it. As CBS News has revealed, Witkoff has undertaken multiple trips to Russia since the beginning of 2025. This includes 2 visits in April, where he directly met with Putin to explore the renewal of peace negotiations between Ukraine and Russia. He also played a pivotal role earlier in January of this year, brokering a ceasefire and facilitating a hostage exchange between Israel and Hamas, as CBS News confirmed. He certainly has a knack for making deals stick.
Quite the portfolio. What have we learned about his arrival and meetings in Moscow today?
Upon his arrival at Moscow's Vnukovo airport this morning, Witkoff was formally greeted by Kirill Dmitriev, a Russian presidential aide who also serves as Russia's envoy for investment and economic cooperation. Dmitriev has a history with the Ukraine conflict, having been involved in unsuccessful direct peace negotiations in Istanbul previously, as reported by WEAU, CBS News, and the Moscow Times. Interestingly, Witkoff and Dmitriev were observed taking an early morning stroll through Zaryadye Park, near the Kremlin, according to CBS News. Later today, President Vladimir Putin held talks with Witkoff inside the Kremlin. While the Kremlin confirmed the meeting, specific details of their discussions are still under wraps. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov had earlier described the talks as, quote, important, substantive, and very useful, end quote, as WEAU and the Moscow Times reported.
This all leads up to President Trump's looming deadline. What exactly is the ultimatum, and what are the threatened consequences?
President Trump has expressed growing frustration with Russia's escalating strikes on civilian areas in Ukraine and has urged President Putin to de-escalate, according to WEAU and CBS News. The ultimatum for Russia to end the war, initially set with a 50-day deadline, was subsequently moved up to this Friday, August 8, due to a perceived lack of progress in the conflict, as CBS News noted. Washington has explicitly threatened, quote, severe tariffs, end quote, and other economic penalties if the fighting does not cease by the deadline, according to NPR and IdeaStream. President Trump has even warned that his administration would impose, quote, secondary tariffs, end quote, on countries like India and China that continue to purchase Russian oil, a trade that has significantly financed Russia's war efforts, as uncovered by the Washington Post. When asked about Witkoff's message, Trump simply stated that Russia should, quote, get a deal where people stop getting killed, end quote. It seems he's putting his money where his mouth is, or rather where other countries' money is.
That sounds like quite a punch. But are these threatened sanctions expected to be effective, especially given Russia's resilience to past measures?
That's the million-dollar question, Grace, and it's a subject of intense debate among experts. On one hand, strategically targeting Russia's, quote, shadow fleet, end quote, of oil tankers and imposing secondary sanctions on major buyers like China and India could sever Russia's remaining economic lifelines. The U.S. has already taken action against India for Russian oil purchases, establishing a precedent for such enforcement, as the Washington Post reported. Historically, secondary sanctions have proven effective in compelling behavioral changes, notably against Iran and Syria, by threatening to cut off foreign entities from U.S. markets, according to the Council on Foreign Relations. Petroleum revenue makes up nearly half of Russia's budget, so intensifying pressure on oil exports could significantly impede their ability to finance the war, as the Economics Observatory highlighted.
However, I imagine there are counter-arguments as well. Russia's economy has certainly shown a remarkable ability to weather the storm of sanctions.
Absolutely. Russia's economy has demonstrated considerable resilience, largely due to its vast natural resources and support from allies like China and India, as the Center for Strategic and International Studies has noted. They've successfully restructured their economy around military production and developed illicit trade networks and that, quote, shadow fleet, end quote, to circumvent restrictions. Trade with China has grown significantly, much of it now conducted in rubles and yuan, according to the Economics Observatory. Some analyses suggest that while sanctions inflict economic pain, they haven't caused widespread economic collapse or halted Russia's aggression. In fact, Russia's GDP even increased in 2024 due to massive war spending, as the Kyiv Independent reported. There's a prevailing view that sanctions, quote, cannot directly stop Russia's war effort, end quote, as put by the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace.
And the risks of imposing such sweeping penalties?
Imposing severe secondary sanctions, particularly on major economies like China and India, carries significant risks of global economic disruption and potential retaliation, for example, regarding critical rare earth minerals, as the Washington Post warns. Experts express doubts about the world's ability to manage without Russian oil exports, and the potential for price jumps if strict implementation leads to a market deficit, according to MaritimeExecutive.com. Furthermore, there's virtually no precedent for economic ultimatums, with a 2-day deadline successfully compelling major military powers like Russia to halt active warfare, as econlib.org has pointed out. Sources close to the Kremlin indicate that President Putin is skeptical that new U.S. sanctions would have a significant impact, and he believes Russia is winning the war, prioritizing military goals, as reported by the Durango Herald.
So while the diplomatic pressure is building, the situation on the ground in Ukraine remains dire, correct?
Sadly, yes. The 3-year conflict has seen no significant progress in peace negotiations. Hours before Witkoff's meeting with Putin today, Russian forces launched an attack on a recreational center in Ukraine's southern Zaporizhia region, killing 2 people and injuring 12, including 2 children, according to CBS News. Russia also targeted Ukraine's power grid and heating gas facilities, actions Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky condemned as having, quote, zero military sense, end quote, and being purely for intimidation, particularly in preparation for winter. Western analysts and Ukrainian officials largely believe Putin is stalling negotiations to allow Russian forces to capture more Ukrainian territory through an ongoing offensive that began in spring.
And what about U.S. military aid to Ukraine under the Trump administration? Is there a disconnect between threatening economic penalties and providing direct military support?
It's certainly a strategic contradiction that has been noted. News reports from July and August of 2025 indicate that the new Trump administration has paused or weighed new military aid packages to Ukraine, as Al Jazeera and The Guardian reported. While some aid previously promised by the Biden administration has continued, the new Trump administration has not packaged any new aid shipments from existing U.S. stockpiles since January of this year, according to the Kyiv Independent. President Trump has reportedly called for an arrangement where European countries purchase American weapons for Ukraine, with a new initiative called the, quote, Prioritized Ukraine Requirements List, end quote, or PEARL, devised by the U.S. and NATO. This policy aims for European allies to finance the arms for Kiev's defense, as Politico.com noted. The administration's stated reason for pausing direct aid has been to ensure it contributes to a solution for peace. This shift has led to bipartisan groups in Congress attempting to preserve weapons procurement programs for Ukraine that the Trump administration had proposed eliminating, as reported by CBS News.
A lot to unpack there, Ethan. It seems like we're on a true diplomatic tightrope walk. Thank you for that comprehensive update.
My pleasure, Grace.
That was Ethan with the latest on the diplomatic push in Moscow. We'll be keeping a close eye on this developing story. Coming up next, we have another important update. That's story 1 of 2. Welcome back, everyone. For our second story this morning, we're turning our attention to the Golden State, California. As of today, August 6, 2025, pinpointing what is truly California's most important story is proving quite the challenge. Joining us live is our reporter Chloe, who has been keeping a close eye on the myriad of critical issues unfolding there. Chloe, it seems like a particularly busy time in California. What is the situation?
That is right, Grace. It is a complex endeavor, as The Guardian, Politico Pro, LAist, and the Los Angeles Times have all acknowledged. There is no single, clear headline, because the state's narrative is a multifaceted tapestry of ongoing challenges.
So no one issue is burning brighter than the rest? I assume that is a pun, given the state's very real struggles with wildfires. Let us start there then, Chloe. What is the latest on the fire front?
You nailed it, Grace. Wildfires are certainly one of the most pressing crises. According to ABC News, updated around August 5, 2025, the Gifford Fire has consumed an immense 83,000 acres. This is not isolated. 2 other significant wildfires accompany it, collectively placing millions in the path of toxic smoke. The Fresno Bee on August 5, 2025, identified the Gifford Fire as the largest California wildfire of 2025, threatening hundreds of structures and causing injuries.
That sounds devastating. Beyond the immediate destruction, what are the broader environmental implications we are seeing?
The environmental impact extends beyond immediate fire damage. ABC News noted widespread air quality alerts across 10 states, including California, directly correlated with these infernos. There are also ongoing environmental debates. For example, the California Coastal Commission is considering rejecting increased SpaceX launches from Vandenberg Space Force Base due to concerns over non-military payloads and environmental impact. And proactively, discussions surround using native California plants and bees to mitigate commercial bee loss in the state's agriculture. They hope to create a buzz with those efforts.
Indeed. Beyond environmental issues, what is happening on the socio-political front?
The state's socio-political landscape is dynamic, Grace. Governor Gavin Newsom recently signed 26 new bills into law, indicating a proactive legislative period as reported by the Fresno Bee. Simultaneously, California is deeply engaged in discussions around critical propositions and legislative efforts addressing pressing societal issues. These include debates surrounding Proposition 36, AB 2943, and 1179, relating to crime and homelessness, alongside Proposition 1, aimed at addressing the unhoused population.
That is a lot of legislative action. What else is shaping the political climate there?
There are continuous discussions concerning potential redistricting efforts, the future trajectory of prominent figures like Vice President Kamala Harris, and persistent efforts to tackle California's pervasive housing crisis. This underscores the state's commitment to adapting policies to its complex and costly living environment.
And what about issues that hit even closer to home, like immigration and local governance?
Those are vital threads in California's narrative as well, Grace. The Fresno Bee, in early August 2025, reported on palpable concern among Fresno families preparing for potential ICE raids. In response, the Mexican consulate in Fresno, represented by Valeria Solorio, has been actively discussing a family preparedness plan. This fear of racial profiling by ICE has led some Californians to carry passports, highlighting deep-seated anxiety within immigrant communities.
That is a significant concern for many families. Are local governance decisions reflecting these broader societal discussions?
Absolutely. For example, the Fresno Bee updated on August 5, 2025, that Fresno County leaders controversially decided to exclude, quote, pride, unquote, from a short list of officially allowed holidays, requiring special approval for any other observances. Education also sees headlines, with a father and son alleging today, August 6, 2025, that Fresno Christian schools failed to address racial bullying. Additionally, 5 Central Valley cities have been ranked among the least educated in the U.S., and changes are reportedly coming to Fresno Unified's DEI, or Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Department.
Finally, Chloe, let us touch on the economic picture. How is California's financial health faring amidst all of these challenges?
Grace, the state's financial health remains a central concern. While California's economy experienced fluctuations in 2024, it continues to grapple with high costs of living and a significant budget deficit. The state's economic resilience and future trajectory are closely linked to national political developments and global economic trends.
It sounds like California is truly a state of many stories, all demanding attention. Thank you so much for breaking down these complex and interconnected challenges for us, Chloe. We appreciate your reporting.
My pleasure, Grace.
Here are some other headlines. In Washington, a once ironclad front of MAGA support for Israel is showing significant cracks amid the ongoing conflict in Gaza. The America First ideology is clashing with traditional pro-Israel foreign policy, with prominent figures like Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene and commentator Tucker Carlson now publicly questioning the US's unwavering financial support. The division, fueled by graphic images of the humanitarian crisis, has led to some unprecedented language. Representative Greene, for example, became the first Republican in Congress to label the situation a genocide, questioning why American taxpayers should continue to fund the conflict. While President Trump has expressed some concern over the images of starving children, he has largely maintained his support for Prime Minister Netanyahu. However, this growing dissent from within his own base is forcing a reconsideration of long-held conservative orthodoxies, and it seems this great divide could reshape the party's foreign policy platform. The House Oversight Committee is trying to uncover the truth in the Jeffrey Epstein case, demanding the Department of Justice's files be fully uncovered. The committee has issued a subpoena for the complete, unredacted records on Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, setting an August 19th deadline. The committee is also casting a wide net for testimony, demanding depositions from former President Bill Clinton, Hillary Clinton, and a roster of former top law enforcement officials, including William Barr, Eric Holder, James Comey, and Robert Mueller. This move follows a statement from the Justice Department that it had found no evidence of a client list and would not be releasing further information, a declaration that was met with widespread skepticism. The DOJ has not yet commented on how it will respond, setting the stage for a potential legal showdown. Meanwhile, a former high-ranking CIA official is defending her work as the Trump administration launches a new probe into the origins of the 2016 Russia investigation. Susan Miller, who oversaw the team that produced the 2017 assessment on Russian election interference, insists the report was based on real intelligence and not politically motivated. This comes as Attorney General Pam Bondi orders a grand jury to review the matter, following claims from the Director of National Intelligence that the original assessment was a, quote, treasonous conspiracy. The dueling narratives are intensifying, creating a case of spy versus spy hunter as the new investigation digs into the roots of the old one. It seems the voice of America is having trouble being heard by its own leadership. The broadcaster's director, Michael Abramowitz, has been fired after he refused what he called an unlawful demotion. The U.S. Agency for Global Media, now managed by Trump loyalist Kari Lake, had ordered Abramowitz to be reassigned to a small station in North Carolina. Abramowitz and his lawyers contend the move was a pretext to illegally oust him. The firing is the latest development in an ongoing lawsuit Abramowitz has filed against the administration, fighting to preserve the broadcaster's journalistic independence and what he calls the quote of law. It appears this was his final sign-off. Finally, whether it's a crackdown on pill mills or political foes, Attorney General Pam Bondi has certainly redefined the role of the nation's top prosecutor. During her time as Florida's AG, she led aggressive campaigns against the opioid crisis and human trafficking, while also spearheading conservative legal challenges against the Affordable Care Act. Now, as U.S. Attorney General, critics say she has transformed the Justice Department into the president's personal law firm, prioritizing loyalty and carrying out a campaign of retribution against political adversaries. Her tenure has been marked by controversy, from her handling of the Epstein files to lawsuits against jurisdictions with protections for undocumented immigrants, leaving her own unique stamp on the scales of justice. That's all we have for now. Today's episode was made by Alexander King with Claude Sonnet 4.0, Gemini Pro 2.5, Gemini Flash 2.5, and Google Cloud Text-to-Speech. I hope you have a great day. I'll see you tomorrow, Alex.